After this brilliant conversation we had with Sudipta here, we're going to move on to our first panel for the day. The topic of the panel is AI research and innovation, where we'll do a deep dive into the latest breakthroughs in the generative AI and the computer vision world. Let me now invite our esteemed panelists and moderator on the stage one by one. So first up, we have an alumnus of IIT Delhi who has a PhD from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. He has 19 US patents and 7,000 citations under his belt. He has been a true pioneer at tech giants like IBM, Xerox, and now heads Google Research India. Join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Manish Gupta. Please take a seat, sir. Next up, we have the visionary tech entrepreneur and alum of IIT Kanpur. He's the founder and CEO of leading tech services firm Thinkfuture Technologies, where he made transformative software like InPage and Dual Mesh ERP. I would like to invite next, and please give a warm welcome to Mr. Vijay Krishan Gupta. Please, sir. Now we have an IIT Guwahati alum, the architect at O9 Solutions, leading their Gen AI development efforts. Earlier, he co-founded a SaaS security startup called Adya, which was acquired later by Qualys. Please welcome on stage Mr. Amit Agarwal. Now we have a computer vision and machine learning expert. He's the Dean of R&D and head of the Center for Visual Information Technology, CVIT, at IIIT Hyderabad. With over 100 publications and 12,000 citations, he's globally recognized for his work. He has long history of partnering with government and industry alike to create a real-world impact. I would like to welcome on stage now Professor C.V. Jawahar. Do we have Professor Lakshmidhar here? Okay, so it seems like due to some challenges, we don't have our fifth panelist, Professor Lakshmidhar Behra, who was supposed to be here. So I'm going to move on to our moderator for the day. I would like to invite Dr. Srinivas Padmanbhuni. He's a talented AI expert honored as an eminent engineer for his work. He holds a PhD in AI from the University of Alberta, has 7 patents and over 100 publications to his name. He's co-founded startups like AIEnsured and loves to mentor thousands about AI. Let's welcome on stage Dr. Srinivas Padmanabhuni. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We would like you to start off this session. Dr. Srinivas, please take it from here.
Hello. Good morning or good afternoon?
Good afternoon. We're on the edge.
Thank you. So I think we had a 360-degree view of the AI revolution as an ideal setting for starting the day with the previous keynote. So I'll start off with some very provocative statements. Having been in the field of AI for last 33 years, I did my MTech, BTech, PhD all in AI. But people ask me now when I meet a kid, oh, was AI there? And then I say, oh, maybe. Then I know, for all of you who don't know AI is invented in 1956. So I don't know what happened in 40, 50 years before 2012 when we had the second wave of AI, which is the deep learning. And now we have November 2022, we have the third wave of AI. So what's the difference? The difference is, like electricity took 150 years to reach mankind. Right? Internet took probably 30 years to reach mankind. The second generation AI took 10 years, which is the deep learning in 2012, right? Computer vision breakthrough. And now I say the third generation AI, which is basically the generative AI, so-called ChatGPT revolution. Of course, there are foundations laid earlier, but it took less than I don't know, a couple of months to reach probably the whole of mankind. So what are we seeing here? Are we seeing some kind of a, man versus machine fight, race to the finish, where instead of half-life, we're going to see an exponential growth, and we're seeing the technology adoption being exponentially growing as we speak? And are we in for like something which is going to grow, and instead of taking a year, it'll take 1 month to reach mankind? 1 day? I don't know. What are we setting ourselves up for? So my biggest provocative thought today is, for the first time in the history of IT, governments have come forward to regulate. In the earlier history of internet, e-commerce, or even some of the earlier generations, we have not seen government actions so much heavily coming together, right from Hiroshima Declaration to Biden's order to United Nations level work which is happening. Today, actually, United Nations is having a task force meeting on AI regulation. And imagine the kind of interest government have. So one aspect I would definitely say is no other technology has invited government's attention like AI. Any earlier technology, whether it was internet, whether it was e-commerce, it did not attract. So that is one big difference you're going to find out. And second thing which I'm very worried about is, I don't want to go into only the positives, but today, when I kind of give ChatGPT some inputs and all that, I come back saying that, she was a good nurse and he was a good doctor. You see a problem with that? It's socially not acceptable. So what are we driving? What technology are we driving at? Is it going to cause social divide? We already saw country versus country. But I'm talking about human versus human. India, we have already enough differences between humanity. But is technology going to drive a caustic war? So we have to be very important, very, very important to set guardrails on these technologies. That's what my company works on, setting up guardrails for technology. But I would like to project that it is an equally important area for research and innovation from all the experts in the world to make sure that we work towards something which is human friendly, which is safe, responsible, which is socially friendly. And third thing which I really want to tell all of you is, AI today is not coming as a technology on its own. It is riding on the top of several innovations which have happened over, let's say, internet, over distributed computing, over parallel algorithms, over cloud architectures, over mathematical algorithms which have lended themselves to parallelism, etc. But last but not the least, the business innovation, which is very important. And I think we already saw a lot of business innovations. So I'd like to start off by saying that initially I would like each of the panelists to give a 2-minute view on their perspective of AI innovations and AI research directions, which they feel are very important in making the journey towards a more acceptable AI, etc. We'll start with Dr. Manish.
Thanks, Srinivas. So, first of all, I would say that yes, I've been a researcher for over 30 years now. You can see from my gray hair. I've never seen the pace of technology as fast, of change and progress as fast as we see right now. So we are absolutely in the middle of a real revolution. That being said, I think it is important for us to not be caught up in the whole hype about generative AI and think that this is going to solve all of the world's problems by itself, that all we need to do is come up with an intelligent AI model, and that intelligent model will know how to solve all of humanity's problems. I don't think it's as simple as that. So one of the areas in which, again, my team has been doing a lot of work is how do you improve these large language models and these they are now becoming large multimodal models with language, vision, audio, video, all of those capabilities. For instance, there was that announcement from Google about Gemini models. So how do you make these models more inclusive? And one of the things that we have seen is there's a huge gap between the capability of these models at understanding English, which works fine for an audience like this, where we all understand English and we can have either Google search or ChatGPT or Bard and so on, or Magi search generative experience at our fingertips, but it doesn't work very well for that laborer's daughter in Chhattisgarh or that farmer in Assam who has their own questions. So how do we improve language inclusivity, add those capabilities to these large language models? That's one area that we've been working on. Another area is kind of looking at, for instance, today, these large models, they require a lot more compute power, a lot more cost, energy, and so on to run these models. Each interaction that you do with something like Bard or ChatGPT and so on is at least a factor of 1,000 more expensive than a single, let's say, Google search. So how do you bring down the cost? How do you democratize the power of these large language models? So again, we've been doing a lot of work on computational efficiency techniques. I mean, taking inspiration also, I mean, ultimately we have to take inspiration from human brain. Human brain does all of this with estimated 20 watts of power consumption. We ought to do much better, right, than consuming all of these megawatts in power when we run these models. And finally, we are also doing a lot of work in applying these models on problems of societal interest where we can have impact on the real world. So, and in particular, we have to look at areas that have been less touched by technology. So amongst those areas, my team has been looking at areas like agriculture. And now it is possible by analyzing satellite imagery. So we have built, for instance, the first such models that for all of India will give you the field boundaries, give you some level of agricultural landscape understanding, including field boundaries, sources of water, crops that are being grown, and so on, because these can not only enable policy makers to make better decisions, they can also unlock a lot of basic applications for farmers, like access to bank loans, access to insurance, crop insurance products that today are completely kind of, they are often locked out of because these processes are very cumbersome. But a lot of these also require not just technology, they also require kind of, again, human change, humans to change, which happens at a much slower pace. So again, I mean, and of course, down the road, we can talk about so many unsolved issues in making these models safe, making them fairer, as you point out. So a lot of, I think this is the most exciting time that I can imagine for a researcher to address some fundamental problems, open problems with these large models, while on the other hand, these models are also showing amazing capabilities in a manner that we know they are going to impact every industry, every part of the world, right, at large.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm still reeling under the effect of Sudipto's complete speech. I mean, such a well-structured delivery. Yeah, so I'm from the services sector. So we believe we are more execution in nature. And I think Sudipto mentioned about getting started. And a lot of the Gen AI that has happened, we bring the last mile. I think Gen AI development leads to 95% of the utility. The last mile, the last 5%, I think requires twice the effort, twice the innovation. And I think with collaboration between different stakeholders like technologists, engineers, human and machine interaction guys, domain experts, we can evolve solutions which are delivering value to the business. So a couple of things that we do. One is using Gen AI, I think, in terms of innovation, how can we make it immediately useful to businesses? So we have been working with some companies that allow us to deliver and adopt and help in adopting technologies for internal use within companies. So something we call Simplified Path. Similarly, I think in education, Sudipto touched on education. In education, you could, with Gen AI, you could build tutors when someone is learning or working on an exercise. You could be a tutor, a guide, helping him with explanations. So I think that's where we are also targeting in terms of building those support infrastructure, so that education to people who want to learn these things, take these courses, how can this be useful to them? So those are the couple of areas I think that comes to my mind and is pretty useful.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I think kudos to organizers for organizing this event. So I think, from my perspective, we are living in the most exciting times, in decades, and this has been really transformative in the sense that till now AI has been accessible only for data scientists or AI specialists. But with the advent of this Gen AI thing, it has come into the hands of common people, developers, right? Today, anyone can take ChatGPT and create GPT of their own without any deep engineering knowledge. I think that has been very transformative. And today, with foundational models, we are able to write articles, create poetry, or even generate code. So this has been very transformative. And if you look at various industries, I think there is hardly any industry which is not getting disruptive because of this AI. Look at scientific research, we talked about it. Healthcare, doctors, pathologists are able to look at vast history of medical conditions and various type of reports, and able to very accurately diagnose the health condition of patients. This really makes everything so accessible and more efficient, which improves greatly in the society. And when we look at the education, right? So I was completely blown away when I first saw the demo of Sal Khan, when he gave a perspective of how they are adopting LLMs at Khan Academy. It's not just about answering a student's question. It's about the ability to reason and understand what are the struggles they're facing, and make them understand the core concepts, and not just give a direct answer. I think that's where the power of the AI comes in, and that's how we should look at it. I know there are a lot of fear on where the AI is going, but from my perspective, I would like to take a positive approach and see what kind of opportunities it is opening us in each and every field. So from my background, I have been part of cybersecurity. The kind of sophistication across the whole technology, it has increased so much, and we really need to build more efficient cybersecurity solutions. People have adopted so many solutions, but they have been facing challenges because most of these solutions work in silos, look at limited set of data, so nobody is able to give a clear picture of how different systems interact and pinpoint the problems. Similarly, in the environment side, I did a project a few months back where it was very surprising seeing very less tech adoption in these core sectors. I developed a solution where we were able to optimize the design of hybrid renewable energy plants and make it more efficient. I mean, this is very need of the hour, right? This is the goal we are towards our net zero emissions. So, if we can adopt these AI technologies and make these core sectors become more efficient and more lucrative for these plant developers and owners, I think it would be a good deed. And finally, at O9 Solutions, we are building business planning solutions, and these are very, very, very business critical decisions. And today, if you look at all the businesses, they are becoming very complicated. The kind of vast geographies they work in, the number of products they deal with. So the complexity of these solutions, businesses have increased a lot, and there is a lot of need of AI which needs to go in to look at that complexity and simplify, so that businesses become more efficient. So yeah, those are my thoughts around it.
Thank you for organizing and inviting. I think the previous talk was very reassuring to me that teachers are not going to lose the job. So given the excitement that we have about AI, given the fear that the AI has created in the minds of people, and the noise that it is creating in the community, including among people like us, I think I want to take a very conservative line and see that, look, where or what happened and why things happened from a slightly different perspective. So if you look at people say why this happened, AI happened, there are multiple ingredients to the story. Of course, people talk about data, people talk about compute, software, libraries, people talk about deep learning, transformers, this, that, etc. What more? What was the next ingredient to the success? People. The number of people that got into the AI or into one technology or into one area was like, this is not comparable to anything that we had seen in the past. The hype, maybe the investors, people put more money, then people more jump into it. Like, so that's the entire cycle you can understand. So as a result, what happened? Things moved fast. And when things move fast, new results will come, new development will happen. Let us not worry too much about, like, of course, that when things move fast, there are its own repercussions. So for example, if you drive super fast on a road here where the rest of the people like auto rickshaws and bikes will struggle to be matching with your speed, there are issues, practical issues in that journey. And that's what we are seeing. So we are not worried about regulations. If you look at who says there is no regulations, if you look at healthcare, if doctors were allowed to practice the way they want, or if the pharma companies were allowed to create whatever medicine they want, we would not be living now. If there was no control over where you can drive, what you can do, where you can build houses, where you cannot do this, say real estate growth happens, we will not be living in cities like this today. So usually regulations catch up. Governments catch up. So we see that today. This should not be possibly interpreted as an act in panic. I'm taking a conservative line to say that, look, so we let us not think that this is not the end of things. So we are seeing today, I fully agree, we are seeing lot of development, lot of changes, lot of positive news, lot of negative news, all of them coming together, and many of us are completely confused. What is this AI? And what these opportunities are going to do? What is going to happen in the next few years? I see two major things that can happen based on my minimal understanding of AI. There are, or if you look at AI, there is a layer of data. Today, a lot of success that we see is all on public, large data that people have created and put it on internet. The second layer is the algorithms. Nicer enhancement of the existing knowledge, good advancement, good, nice algorithm scheme. But there are two types of application that we are going to see. One is a new opportunities that we are going to see. For example, what LLMs will do. What new drug discovery is going to enable us for living forever. So there is a new class of opportunities that are coming up for sure. I think everybody is talking about it. But the existing application domains are not going to disappear. Floods are going to be there ever. We need technology, we need solutions for helping people who live in India, who live around. Disasters, diseases, survival, education, or whatever you think, whatever we practice, they are all going to continue. They will be impacted positively. There will be ingredients that will go to that. And there will be really opportunities on the ground. And these are not going to get closed. They will be revolutionary, they will be made more efficient, more technologies will come. So there is this complete space where AI is going to impact the applications around, and we are all going to get benefited, and we need to adapt appropriately. Just like all others talked about what they do in their own organizations, I should also say from an education point of view where I see AI is going to impact. So just like if you look at history, many years back, mathematics was just one discipline in engineering. At some stage we decided mathematics is so important, everybody should learn maths. At some stage we decided that computers, whether you do chemical engineering or mining engineering, you should learn computers. Similarly, AI is going to be, or appropriate AI module is going to be important for education, and it is going to be more fundamental as we move forward. And that is also, we are hoping the education or the technology will have to be adapted, education models and curriculums and methods will have to be adapted to scale at that. That's something that we should keep in as education.
Thanks, everyone. I think some of the questions I was going to do a follow on, I already got the answers. But I'll be a bit more provocative. There is always a moral angle in a lot of AI applications. I'll come to some domain like education. So last Professor Jawahar, would you let students use ChatGPT for their home assignments? What would be an appropriate, balanced technique or process?
I think there is no other option. So if you look at, say, many years back, people were doing all tables. At some stage, people started to use calculators, isn't it? I'm sure there are people here who did not use calculator when they were students, and most of us started to use calculator. We started to use spell checkers, isn't it? Now we started to use Grammarly's. Next is ChatGPT. It's a natural evolution. So it just takes time whether the ChatGPT will be allowed inside the exam hall, whether it will be allowed only for assignments, whether it will be homework, where, what, etc. There will be minor changes. We are going to use that.
Okay. Professor Manish, I want to ask you, you mentioned some social good, right? I think that's a very exciting angle given the fact that we all think usually from business perspective, but can you highlight on AI for social good? Because I think that's a very, very enlightening angle for AI to enhance, basic acceptance of the technology by humans.
Yeah, so there are many, many different ways in which we can really start to apply AI for social good, right? One is, one of the applications, right, that has taken, when you look at ChatGPT and so on, right, which has taken the world by storm, is basic access to information, right? You have a problem, you have a question, and you want the AI-based model, right, to help you provide that information. Again, I would argue today, there's a huge gap between the quality of answers you can get when you ask your question in English versus when you ask the same question in Hindi, and the gap becomes even greater when you ask the same question in Assamese or in Santhali or in one of the dialects that is not even known to many of these large language models. Because today, if you look at, for instance, India, there are 22 scheduled languages. There are over 100. So it goes back to kind of the challenge that I gave to my team. I said, make sure that you build a single model, AI model, that can understand all of the 22 scheduled languages. And I was so happy that my team didn't listen to me. Partha Talukdar, who leads our team, he came back and said, look, there are 125 languages in India that have over 1 million speakers. That have over 1 lakh speakers. There are 60 Indian languages which have over 1 million speakers. And out of these 125 languages that have over 1 lakh speakers, 72 are so-called zero corpus languages. There is zero known digital data for 72 of the languages which are spoken by over 1 lakh speakers. So the first thing to do is to make sure that you bring all of those languages, right, into these models. And therefore we embarked on this project Vani, where we are collecting speech data from the eventual goal is to collect it from each and every one of the 773 districts in India. We have already collected data from 85 districts and made it openly available. But the eventual goal is to collect it from each and every district. So, and we are now, so far, all of these large language models, you've had speech learn from text data. We are trying the reverse. Can you have text models learn from speech data for so many of these languages where your corpus for text is very, very poor, where you have a lot more speech data? So that's kind of one example. I referred to this work that we are doing in agriculture using satellite imagery analysis. Another example is where we are working with non-profits for improving maternal and child health. It's led by my colleague Milind Tambe, who's also a professor at Harvard. And what we found was that, I mean, the statistics are very sobering. I mean, they've now improved, but still not as much. A woman dies at childbirth or at least used to die every 15 minutes. I don't know what the number today is. I hope it's a lot longer, but still unacceptably high. And the founder of this non-profit, Arman, that we work with, I mean, she made this very powerful statement. She's a gynecologist. She said, pregnancy is not a disease. Women should not be dying of childbirth in this day and age. So there are these very simple things that they do where they send out these messages. During every week of the pregnancy, there are voice messages that get delivered to women over their mobile phones. And they have studies which show that women who listen to these messages have better outcome for themselves and their babies. And yet, half of the women end up dropping out of that program. So they asked us to build AI models for that very simple problem that, look, we have a few human volunteers who will call up those women who are likely to drop out. Can you help us identify with our limited resources, right, when we have lakhs of women enrolled at any given point in time, which are the ones that we should prioritize? So we applied, we built, again, with a lot of very fancy math, solving this Whittle index and decision-focused learning, restless multi-armed bandits. This is the largest known application that we know of restless multi-armed bandits to public health, which got deployed. So the team built those AI models, they've deployed those models in production, and we found that for the bottom 25% listeners, these models were able to improve the overall amount of content that they listened by something like 130%. So that was the power of AI, but we've only scratched the surface. There are so many more ways in which we need to still apply AI to improve the actual health outcomes. So I would say, look, there are just tons and tons of problems that still remain and tons of opportunities for us to apply AI. And invariably, what we find is that when we start to apply AI to these actual real-world problems, there are still open issues. You can't just take an existing AI model out of the box and expect it to just work flawlessly and solve that problem. It never happens. We always find that we have to, again, we first apply that AI model and then we have to improve it before we are able to solve that problem. So that's been a consistent experience.
Thanks. That's a very important angle of AI, which is actually at the focus also as equally important as the business adoption of AI. So with that, I'd like to ask you, Vijay, see, one thing is like technology will keep changing. So what is, in your opinion as a business leader, from your business leadership perspective and your employees' perspective, your customer perspective, what are the effective change management kind of things you will be advocating so that you're not stuck with a lot of rework or retraining, etc., with every wave of technology? What are your thoughts?
So, I think when you look at AI with businesses, one of the things that we have found is that we need to go, the AI models have come in, and now you need to go the extra mile with the customers, and you need to take it to the customers and implement it. A lot of the times you get this problem of the AI is erroneous, and then the human element needs to take over and provide a proper response. So those are the kind of, I think, areas that the human can lead and help with the application and usage of the model in a business. Now, from perspective of, I think that change is obviously going to happen when you have something new coming in to an organization. You have to be ready with skilling people, and you have to be ready with ensuring that these people learn these and on top of the different technologies. So those are the, I think you just have to be aware that you have to teach these people and teach your employees and be sure that they are up to the date with the technologies.
Good. Amit, what are your perspectives on, there is a lot of negative press, right, about hallucinations, about can we really trust the APIs? Also, the other important political issue is, are we giving our business control to very few who are producing the foundation models? And that's a business risk, right? So from a business perspective, right, since you are running business, you are managing projects, what are your ways you think about the risk mitigation of adoption of AI in businesses?
I think this really has been the talk of the town and a very pertinent discussion to have when we are talking about AI's adoption. So there are a couple of things, right? So first of all, when we talk about reliability and safety around AI, we really need to look at certain few things like transparency. I think transparency is very, very important when we are designing the AI systems. Any system built through AI should be able to explain the whole decision-making process, how they arrived at a decision. And these things are very critical in certain applications like law enforcement, healthcare, finance, where trust is very important. Similarly, there are problems around bias mitigation, right? So there is a growing concern about these LLMs being biased towards certain individuals, and that can lead to very unfair treatment of individuals or societies. So we need to make sure that we develop these systems which have a control or at least an observation on how these systems are working and be able to detect and mitigate if any bias arises on these things. Then coming to the second point of being given access to certain businesses using these APIs and all, I think that is how it has started. But ultimately, if you look at the end game or how I see it is going to get evolved, is that businesses would need their own fine-tuned models, right? We don't really need a 70 billion parameter model to do very specific things. Rather, we would be having very small models, few billion parameters that should be sufficient, but fine-tuned for very exact use cases, right? That's how I see, businesses are going to use these LLMs. So, point is that it's easy to take APIs and get started with building prototypes, but ultimately, when you build something meaningful for enterprises and businesses, that's where I see that for efficiency and transparency, you would end up using very small and very fine-tuned models. That I think takes away that concern. And secondly, I think the whole trigger of this AI revolution recently has, a major factor of that has been the open source community, right? The developments which has happened in the open source community. I mean, it would not have been possible for developers to take these models and start building solutions on top of it. So it's not. That fear is, in my opinion, that fear is not real. There's a lot of open source community which is getting very mature, and it's not going to happen that way. Is that control would go to few businesses, and they would take the organizations or business data and do some mischief there. So it's a very, very active community which is getting developed. Things are distributed, so I don't see that fear being real.
Very pertinent observation that we're going to move to more open models, small models, rather than saying that we'll only depend on the few large models. That's a very convincing answer, because from a business perspective, as you know from the recent fiasco at some of the companies where without the knowledge, employees were leaking the data to the foundation models, and it was causing havoc in the enterprise mind. So from an enterprise CIO perspective, the LLMs are a nightmare, actually. So I think it's going to be a huge benefit if the open source community comes up and gives challenge to these models. So coming to your question, you talked about transparency and all that, right? So there are two ways of doing all this. When you talk about enforcing bias checking or enforcing things like security checking, privacy checking, all that. One is called the de jure, or another is de facto. De facto is where you are in the process of business and you're trying to do business, and from your customer feedback itself, you be self-vigilant and you try to enact on this. And in another way is the de jure, which is the regulation, right? Where regulations will come in, force you to do these things and test and certify before you go and release models. So I would like to collect your opinion on this whole concept of, do you think the industry should come forward and do more forward thinking on guardrails and making themselves producing safety related issues rather than governments coming down the neck? What are your collective opinions? I'll take anyone can answer.
Yeah, so I can start. Definitely there's a need for industry to pay a lot of attention to safety. We heard about the problem of hallucination. There's also a problem of biases that often these LLMs encode in their models. So there is clearly that need to be responsible. So at least I know for most large AI companies, they have their own versions. Like Google has these AI principles that we have enunciated, and each and every, not just product goes through that audit of are you conforming, but even right from the time that we start building AI models, what are the data sets that you are using? Are these data sets truly representative, right? Of and are they going to introduce biases and so on? So there is a lot of work happening, but at the same time, I ultimately feel there's also a need and place for regulation, and that regulation should be more around usage of these AI, because of these AI models, rather than just in the foundation models themselves. And because what I really fear is, as these models become really, really powerful, the ability to cause harm, right, through things like weapons, drones, and so on, right, that you can imagine. And not just, of course, at one extreme, the weapons. On the other extreme, even things like misinformation and so on, right? There's tremendous harm that you can cause. So there is definitely also a need for the government to ultimately introduce regulation based on usage, but it has to be done in a manner that still allows the innovations in AI that will benefit humanity to continue, while at the same time limiting the damage that these models are, of course, able to cause when directed towards harmful activities.
So I think I want to add one point, like it's a question of government or industry is not the only thing. We should also look at what we want to keep in mind while developing technology. I believe some of these issues are so fundamental that it has to be taught at the school. Because what are the implications of technology and technology development? That has to be, like students will have to be aware while studying the technology. They should understand they are developing technology that is going to coexist with human. And so these implications and interconnection of the technology and interconnection to the humanities has to be like understood and well appreciated at the education level. Unfortunately, most of our engineering education looks at humanities and associated subjects as a necessary evil to get some score, because in the first year they have been asked to study and get some marks. But it is not, it needs a very tight integration with technology, and that's the way to go forward.
You want to add?
Yeah. So I think from the industry perspective, most of the times, again, AI is not a silver bullet, but there have been people who have peddled it like a snake oil. So I think it is important from industry perspective, despite what sales team may say, that we deliver value to the customer, so they build trust in the solutions. Once they build trust with the AI solutions, I think they will embrace it in a much better way. And part of that is also, I think the government regulations will happen. They're bound to happen. But I think the short term, the industry has to take a view that they have to provide a value to the customer and approach it from that session.
Good. I think kind of all of you agree. I want to bring some slightly subject-oriented question to Professor Jawahar. He has been in the field. See, will the proliferation of Gen AI means all the AI we're studying currently, right, with deep learning, ML, is that going to vanish?
No.
Can you substantiate?
See, nothing has changed, isn't it? If you just look at, you're looking at Gen AI as a completely new beast. So the Gen AI is not going to kill the old AI and old deep learning, and old deep learning is not going to make all the pre-existing machine learning irrelevant, or the entire machine learning is not going to make all the statistics and signal processing irrelevant. No.
Thanks for confirming, because I want to mention one thing, that one of the biggest areas of research in Gen AI is about bringing old AI concept called planning, which is about bringing workflows, optimized planning both forward and backward, is back into how you optimize the enterprise workflow by using LLM. So I want to see that this is actually generation 1 AI, which is planning. It's not even deep learning. So actually what you said is correct, and I see that the whole field is coming with that. So what we have seen is a plethora of topics, right from responsible AI, use cases, business modeling. Then we saw use cases around social good. Then we saw about the R&D areas in AI. So I would like to ask the panel for a 30-second some closing remarks from each of you. Manish?
Okay, so my closing remark, I would say the most exciting that I'm looking forward to is AI helping advance scientific discovery. We've already seen some glimpses, right, of what can be done through things like AlphaFold and so on, where you've been able to have an AI model that has now come up with protein structure prediction for each and every one of the 200 million proteins known to humankind. It used to take one PhD. It used to take like 5 years to come up with a structure of a single protein. So we have done 1 billion years of kind of PhD equivalent work, right, has been accelerated, right, by this AI model. And to me, what is really exciting is how, again, AI applied the right way could enable and accelerate scientific discovery. That's one of the things I'm most excited about.
Vijay?
AI is definitely exciting, but I think we need to look at it two things. One is, how do you ensure the quality of the AI? So I think there is a lot of work going there, and so that is number one. And second is the compute. If we can bring down the compute, this will lead to wider adaptability and more of ESG.
So I think, see, the AI this time has been really transformative. I mean, we have been AI systems, building rule-based systems, and then adopting machine learning, and then neural networks came, enabled deep learning and all. So it has been continuous evolution of AI algorithms. And now with Gen AI, I think the most transformative thing which has happened is the accessibility. That a developer or a common person can use this technology and build effective solutions. So I think what we really need to do is that it's not necessary for us to build foundation models. They exist, and there's so many of them which exist. I think what we need to focus is take very specific business problems and then try to solve those business problems using the technology available. I think there is a greater collaboration which is needed with R&D, the research institutes, where we can train the workforce on how to leverage these technologies and build very specific business solutions. I think that's where we Indians are good at building businesses, understanding businesses, and how we leverage this technology is going to be really, really important. So it's not about just building or doing automations, right? It's about augmenting human capabilities and exploring new opportunities which were not possible earlier. So I think that's my thoughts.
Given the human resource we have, given the analytical mind that we have, given the software background and history that we have, given the huge data resources, repositories, unstructured data that we have in our own, I would like to imagine today AI as advantage India.
Thanks for the panel. I'd like to close my own thought with two topics. One, I think, is the responsible AI, which all of us agree that we need guardrails. Second thing is the whole theme about use cases. Yesterday, if you have heard Nandan Nilekani speak, he said, the future for people is about use cases. Don't think technology, statistics, model, LLM, LVM is not, but they will come and go. But use cases centric thinking is going to be fundamental. And like our advantage, we have a very big advantage in leapfrogging the technology as a country. So let us leapfrog our country to being the number one adopter of AI for solving social and business problems of the world. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank the panelists.
Thank you so much, everyone on the panel. Thank you so much, Dr. Srinivas. I would like you to stay here for a little bit for a couple of questions. We'll keep these questions very short again, and then we'll have a token of appreciation. So I would like you to settle down for another minute, and then we can go on from there. Yes, sir. Who has the mic here?
Can I start?
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to you also, sir.
So first of all, thank you so much to all the panelists for the very insightful session. Very helpful. I would like to ask Vijay. So Vijay, I work in the technology and AI domain in Europe, and would love to know from you and maybe others also, any use cases that you may have implemented using AI, and what challenges did you face while implementing them with other corporates?
Yeah, I think one of the use case that we implemented is for a worker who is skilling himself. So we call it self-test. And what that does is it allows that worker to be taught or tutored as that person walks through his training course, and also if he gets stuck on some particular problem or is unable to solve or need guidance, then it's a combination of human and AI, where if AI cannot solve the problem or cannot help him, then a human is matched dynamically using skill matching, and based on his availability is brought within, let's say, a minute of that problem being raised. Something we call Uber of skilling. So that's one particular use case that we have implemented, and the other one has been in what we're calling Simplify Path, where we improve the adaptability of technology within a company using a simple Google-style search capability, where we do both information retrieval as well as transaction. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Please, you may ask a question. This would be the last question we'll be able to take for the day, but we will be able to find all of the speakers outside at lunch as well.
I've been taught artificial intelligence by Professor Brahmadev and supported by my daughter from Indianapolis through machine learning. He started the class always like this. If you want to learn AI, then I will ask one question. How to prevent a war? He will see everybody and finally tell, be prepared for the war. So is it correct that artificial intelligence will lead to give such type of innovation that we can stop the war by preparing thoroughly?
I think I'll take a stab at it that it is a human issue, it's not a technology issue. So I'd like to again reiterate, people who control AI are humans. People who decide how to use it are humans. People who administer them also are humans. So I would leave it to humans.
Wonderful. So, on that note, sir, just a very interesting thing. Everyone thought when the nuclear bomb was designed, everyone thought that the world would be destroyed. And we've had the most peaceful time practically compared to our history ever. So, when we have amazing weapons, we have deterrence. And that's an interesting thought that I'd come across earlier. And I hope this holds true for the world of AI as well. So with that, thank you so much. We've had a phenomenal discussion here. We've dived deep, as promised, into a lot of these domains. We've had a diverse background on the panel today.